I was carrying a bag of fresh tomatoes from the garden when I saw my wife's journal lying open on the kitchen table. The page showed a prayer list, and halfway down I read, "Lord, guide us as we prepare for Richard's passing. Help Brandon execute the plan without hesitation." My legs nearly gave out. The kitchen smelled like the cinnamon candles Denise always burned during her morning devotions. Sunlight streamed through the window over the sink, hitting the cross-stitch on the wall that said, "As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord." The tomatoes felt heavy in my hands, dirt still clinging to them from where I'd pulled them off the vine minutes before. I stood there, frozen, reading those words again and again like maybe I'd misunderstood. But there was no misunderstanding. My name, Brandon's name. The word plan. Brandon was Denise's son from her first marriage. He was 29, lived in our basement, and had the kind of smile that made church ladies think he was a good boy who just needed time to find his way. I'd tried to help him find it, given him work at my lawn care business, paid for a certification course he never finished, co-signed a loan he'd defaulted on within 6 months. 3 months ago, when I'd finally said no to another loan, his smile had disappeared. He'd looked at me with something cold in his eyes and said, "You're going to regret being tight-fisted, Richard." Denise had defended him like always. "He's going through a hard time. You could be more understanding." Now here was her journal, her prayer journal, the one she wrote in every morning while drinking her coffee, asking God to guide her day. And she was asking him to guide my murder. My hands started shaking. The tomatoes tumbled onto the counter, one rolling off and splitting open on the floor. Red juice spread across the tile like blood, and I thought, that's what she wants. That's what they both want. I heard footsteps upstairs. Denise moving around in our bedroom, my heart hammered. I wanted to run up there and confront her, demand to know what kind of evil had taken root in the woman who'd stood beside me in church for 8 years, singing hymns and holding my hand during prayers. But something stopped me. Maybe it was the Holy Spirit. Maybe it was plain common sense. Either way, I knew that if I confronted her now, I'd be giving them a chance to change their plan, cover their tracks, or worse, speed things up. Be wise as serpents and innocent as doves. That's what Jesus said. I'd heard that verse my whole life, but I'd never understood it until that moment. I grabbed my phone and took pictures of the journal pages. My hands shook so badly the first few were blurry. I steadied myself against the counter, whispered a prayer, and tried again. This time they came out clear. I heard Denise's footsteps on the stairs. I closed the journal carefully, exactly how it had been, and moved to the sink. Started washing the tomatoes like nothing had happened. When she walked into the kitchen, I was standing there with water running over my hands, looking as normal as I could manage. "Oh, you picked tomatoes," she said sweetly. She kissed my cheek. Her lips felt like ice. "Thought we could have them with dinner," I said. My voice came out steadier than I expected. She smiled. "That's thoughtful. I'm going to prayer group at Sarah's house. I'll be back around 4, prayer group." The words made my stomach turn. I wondered if she'd pray for my death there too, if she'd bow her head with the other women and ask God to make me blind to what was coming. "Drive safe," I said. After she left, I sat down at the kitchen table and stared at that journal. It was burgundy leather with a cross embossed on the cover. She'd been so proud when I'd given it to her last Christmas. "Now I can keep all my prayers organized," she'd said, hugging me tight. I opened it again and started from the beginning. Page after page of normal prayers. Prayers for our church, for missionaries overseas, for her sister's health, for Brandon to find steady work. Then, about 2 months ago, the tone shifted. "Lord, I'm struggling with bitterness toward Richard. He doesn't understand Brandon's situation. He's becoming an obstacle." A week later, "Father, I keep thinking about that verse where you removed obstacles from your people's path. I wonder if you're calling me to trust you with something difficult." Then, praying for clarity about the insurance policy. Brandon says it would provide security. I know Richard wouldn't want me to struggle financially if something happened to him. The insurance policy. 6 months ago, Denise had asked me to increase my life insurance. Said she'd been worried ever since her friend's husband died suddenly and left his wife with nothing. I'd thought she was being practical. The new policy was for $500,000. My chest tightened. I could barely breathe. The woman I'd married, the woman who taught Sunday school and organized the church bake sale, had been planning this for months, and she'd been praying about it, asking God to help her murder me. I heard a noise from the basement. Brandon moving around down there? I wondered what he was doing. Wondered if he was preparing something right now? My phone buzzed, a text from Denise. Forgot my Bible. Can you bring it to Sarah's? I stared at that message. Part of me wanted to text back. I know what you're planning. But I didn't. Instead, I wrote, sure thing. Be there soon. I grabbed her Bible from the bedside table, and underneath it, I found something that made my blood run cold. A printout of an article titled Undetectable Poisons, a forensic overview. My wife had been researching how to kill me. I took a picture of that too. Then I put everything back exactly as I'd found it, grabbed her Bible, and walked out to my truck. But I didn't drive to Sarah's house. I drove to the police station. The officer at the desk looked up when I walked in. He was young, maybe mid-20s, with the kind of face that said he'd probably never dealt with anything worse than speeding tickets and noise complaints. Can I help you? He asked. I opened my mouth and realized I had no idea how to say this. My wife is planning to kill me. Sounded insane. Like something from a TV movie. Like the ramblings of a paranoid old man. But then I thought about that journal. Those prayers, that article. I need to report a conspiracy to commit murder, I said quietly. His eyebrows shot up. Sir, that's a serious accusation. I know, I said. That's why I'm here. They put me in a small room that smelled like stale coffee and sweat. A detective came in. Older guy with gray hair and tired eyes. His name was Detective Morrison, and he had the look of someone who'd seen enough darkness that nothing surprised him anymore. I showed him the photos on my phone, watched his expression shift from skeptical to serious as he read through Denise's journal entries and saw the poison article. Mr. Patterson, he said slowly, you're telling me your wife wrote these prayers about your death and your stepson is involved? That's exactly what I'm telling you. He leaned back in his chair. This is unusual. Most people don't document their murder plans in a prayer journal. Most people don't think God would approve of murder, I said. My voice cracked. But Denise has convinced herself this is righteous somehow, that I'm an obstacle to God's plan for Brandon. Morrison studied me for a long moment. Do you have reason to believe there's an immediate threat? Has anyone tried anything? I thought about it. Had they? Or was this all still in the planning stage? I don't know, I admitted. But I found that article today, and her prayer from yesterday said, help Brandon execute the plan without hesitation. That sounds pretty immediate to me. Morrison nodded. Okay, here's what we're going to do. First, I want you to go to the hospital and get a full toxicology screen done. If they've already started poisoning you, we need to know. Second, I want you to stay somewhere else tonight. Do you have friends or family nearby? My brother lives 2 towns over. Good, go there. Don't tell your wife where you're going. Just leave. We're going to investigate this, but I need you somewhere safe while we do. I nodded, feeling numb. This morning I'd been planning to fix the fence and maybe watch a ball game tonight. Now I was fleeing my own home like a refugee. One more thing, Morrison said. I want to set up a controlled meeting. You, your wife, and your stepson, with us listening. See if we can get them to say something incriminating. You want me to wear a wire? I asked, if you're willing. I thought about Denise's face that morning. The kiss on my cheek. The sweet smile that hid such ugliness underneath. I'm willing, I said. The hospital took 4 hours. They drew what felt like gallons of blood, asked me 100 questions, and finally sent me home with instructions to come back in 2 days for results. If there was poison in my system, they'd know soon. I drove to my brother Tom's house. He opened the door looking confused. Rich, what are you doing here? Can I come in? I need to tell you something. Tom made coffee while I told him everything. When I finished, he sat there for a long minute, just staring into his mug. Denise, he finally said. You're Denise? The one who brings me cookies every Christmas? The same one. Jesus Christ, Richard. Don't take the Lord's name in vain, I said automatically. Old habit. Tom laughed, but it was bitter. Your wife is planning to kill you, and you're worried about me cursing? He shook his head. You can stay here as long as you need. The guest room's yours. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in Tom's guest bed staring at the ceiling, wondering how I'd missed this. How had the woman I loved, the woman I prayed with and shared my life with, become capable of this? I thought about our wedding day, how beautiful she'd looked, how I'd promised before God to love and cherish her until death parted us. I'd meant those vows. Had she? Or had she been calculating even then? My phone buzzed. A text from Denise. Where are you? It's late. I didn't answer. Another buzz. Richard, I'm getting worried. Please respond. Then, if you're angry about something, we can talk about it. I watched those messages come in, one after another, her tone shifting from concern to frustration to something that felt like panic. Did she think I'd figured it out? Or was she genuinely worried about me? Finally, I responded, needed some space. Staying at Tom's tonight, don't wait up. Her reply came fast. Is everything okay? Fine, I typed. Just needed to think. Think about what? I didn't answer that one. The next morning, Detective Morrison called. The toxicology screen came back. You've got elevated levels of arsenic in your system. Not enough to kill you yet, but enough to show someone's been dosing you regularly. My stomach dropped. How long? The levels suggest it's been going on for at least a month, maybe longer. Small doses mixed into food or drink. Classic poisoning pattern. I felt sick. A month, maybe longer. I'd been eating Denise's cooking, drinking coffee she made, trusting her completely while she slowly poisoned me. We're getting a warrant for your house, Morrison continued. I need you to stay away for a few more days while we collect evidence. Can you do that? Yes, I said. My voice sounded hollow. Mr. Patterson, you did the right thing coming to us. A few more weeks and he didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. That afternoon, Tom convinced me to go to church. You need to pray, he said. And you need to be around people who love you. I didn't want to go. Didn't want to face people and pretend everything was normal. But Tom was right. I needed to pray. Needed to feel God's presence because right now I felt completely alone. The service had already started when we slipped in the back. Pastor Williams was preaching about forgiveness, about how we're called to forgive others as God forgives us. The irony wasn't lost on me. Halfway through the sermon, I saw Denise. She was sitting in our usual pew, 3 rows from the front. Brandon sat beside her. They both had their Bibles open, looking for all the world like devoted believers seeking God's word. My hands clenched into fists. After the service, people gathered for fellowship in the community room. I stayed in the sanctuary, sitting in that back pew, trying to process everything. That's when Pastor Williams found me. Richard, he said gently, Tom told me you're going through something difficult. Would you like to talk? I looked at this man who'd married Denise and me, who'd counseled us through arguments and celebrated our anniversaries. Could I tell him the truth? That one of his faithful congregants was a would-be murderer? Pastor, I said slowly, how do you forgive someone who's trying to kill you? He blinked. That's quite a hypothetical. It's not hypothetical. His face changed. Richard, what are you talking about? So I told him, showed him the photos of Denise's journal on my phone, told him about the poison, the police investigation, all of it. When I finished, Pastor Williams looked like he'd aged 10 years. Lord have mercy, he whispered. Denise, Brandon? I can't believe it. I couldn't either, I said. But the evidence doesn't lie. He sat beside me and we prayed together. Not a simple prayer, but the kind of desperate, gut-wrenching prayer you pray when everything you thought was solid turns out to be sand. Father, Pastor Williams said, we don't understand this. We don't understand how evil can take root in hearts that claim to serve you. But we trust that you see everything, that justice belongs to you, and that your grace is sufficient even now. When we finished, I felt a little steadier. Not better, how could I be better, but steadier. What happens now? Pastor Williams asked. I wait, I said. The police are investigating. They'll make arrests when they have enough evidence. And then? Then I have to figure out how to keep living in a world where the woman I loved wanted me dead. 2 days later, the police called. They'd executed the search warrant and found everything they needed. Arsenic in the sugar bowl, the one Denise knew I used for my coffee every morning. More poison hidden in the basement in Brandon's room. And emails between Denise and Brandon discussing the plan in detail, including how they'd spend the insurance money. We're making arrests today, Morrison said. I wanted you to know before it happens. Thank you, I said. Mr. Patterson, one more thing. Your wife's journal had more entries, recent ones. She wrote about how God was testing her faith, how she needed to trust him even though you were becoming suspicious. She wrote that if you figured out the plan, Brandon would need to accelerate the timeline. My blood went cold. Meaning? Meaning if you'd stayed in that house much longer, they wouldn't have waited for the poison to work. I think they would have moved to something more immediate. I sat down hard. If I hadn't found that journal when I did, if I'd waited even one more day. You saved your own life, Morrison said quietly. That evening, the arrests made the local news. Church-going woman and son arrested for attempted murder, the headline read. My phone started ringing immediately. Friends from church, neighbors, people I hadn't talked to in years, all wanting to know if it was true. I didn't answer. I sat in Tom's living room watching the news coverage, seeing Denise and Brandon led away in handcuffs. Denise was crying, mascara running down her face. Brandon looked angry, defiant. I forgive them, I said out loud. Tom looked at me like I'd lost my mind. What? I forgive them, I repeated. Not because they deserve it, not because it's easy, but because holding on to hate would finish what they started. It would kill me from the inside. Tom shook his head. You're a better man than me. No, I said. I'm just a man who understands that revenge belongs to God, not me. They'll face justice in court, and they'll face justice before the Lord. My job is to heal and move forward. The trial happened 6 months later. I testified about finding the journal, about the poison, about everything. Denise's lawyer tried to paint me as a controlling husband who drove her to desperate measures. Brandon's lawyer claimed he was manipulated by his mother. The jury didn't buy it. They convicted both of them. Denise got 15 years, Brandon got 20. When the verdict came in, I didn't feel victorious. I felt sad. Sad for the life we could have had. Sad for the family that had been destroyed. Sad for two people who'd chosen darkness over light. After it was over, I moved to a small town 2 hours away. Got a job at a hardware store. Started attending a new church where nobody knew my story. I kept my head down and my heart open, trusting that God had a purpose for my survival, even if I couldn't see it yet. A year after the trial, I got a letter. Prison postmark from Denise. I almost threw it away without opening it. But something made me slice the envelope and unfold the pages inside. Dear Richard, it began, I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't deserve it. But I need you to know that I see clearly now what I couldn't see before. The devil convinced me that killing you was God's will. That sounds insane written out, but that's how deception works. It makes evil look righteous. I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry. Truly, deeply sorry. I pray every day that you're healing, that you've found peace, that God is restoring what I tried to destroy. I don't deserve a reply, but if you ever find it in your heart to write back, I'd like to hear that you're doing okay. With regret, Denise. I read that letter 3 times. Then I sat down and wrote a response. Denise, I forgive you. Not because what you did was acceptable. It wasn't. Not because it doesn't still hurt. It does. But because unforgiveness is a prison, and I refuse to live in one, even though you're in one now. I'm doing okay. Building a new life, making new friends, learning to trust again. It's hard, but God is faithful even when people aren't. I hope you find real redemption in prison. Not the fake kind that's just remorse about getting caught, but the deep soul kind that only comes from truly facing what you've done and letting God transform you from the inside out. I won't write again. This chapter of our lives needs to stay closed, but I want you to know that I don't hate you. I pity what you became, and I pray you'll become something better. Richard, I mailed that letter and felt something break loose inside me. The last chains of bitterness and anger fell away. I was finally truly free. If you're reading this and you've been betrayed by someone you trusted, I want you to know. Forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. It doesn't mean pretending it didn't happen. It means releasing the poison of hate before it kills you the way arsenic almost killed me. Trust your instincts, document everything. Seek help when you need it. And remember that surviving isn't the same as winning. Sometimes just living through darkness is victory enough. Because at the end of the day, wisdom isn't about being smarter than evil people. It's about recognizing evil when you see it and having the courage to walk away before it destroys you. Now we thank you for reaching this end. Please comment down below what you have learned from this story and what you would have done if it was in your shoes. So stick around for our next uploads. See you.